This is K-12 Tech Talk. K-12 Tech Talk. The podcast by K-12 Techs for K-12 Techs. Real conversations, real arguments, and real banter on trending K-12 technology topics and issues.
Live from the NTP studios, this is the K-12 Tech Talk Podcast, episode 157. I am Josh. With me, as always, well, most of the time, is Mark. Hey, Mark.
Hey, I'm here.
And Chris, we're not real sure where he is. I actually think as of 6 minutes ago, he is throwing a kickoff party for the Midwest Tech Talk Security Symposium that is taking place tonight. Well, not really tonight. Tomorrow in Columbia, Missouri, March 8th. So he's got his kickoff event. He's been in Columbia, I assume, most of the day. So while Chris is gone, he's kind of like, I wouldn't say mother hen, but he has a high bar of production and show quality, and he tries to prevent Mark and I. How would you say it, Mark? Well, I think your dog said it best. He barks at us, and he won't let us drink on the job. So tonight, in honor of Chris being gone, Mark and I will just both real quick here.
We're drinking on the job.
I'm just drinking some Buffalo Trace. Mark, you told me something really interesting about what you were drinking. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking the first, or I think it's the first.
Artificial you've had, right?
The first I've had. The first artificial intelligence created beer. It's from a local brewery near me called Night Shift, and it's called, let's see if I can get on the camera here, AIPA.
Oh, that's cool.
And the recipe and label were created by artificial intelligence.
Super cool. I used to brew beer with two friends that I did another podcast with years and years ago, and we would brew beer about once a month. That's a fun process. It
is fun.
Yeah,
it's
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So let's just hit a couple sponsors real quick. Chris normally does the yakking about sponsors, but I guess that's my role tonight. We'll hit ManagedMethods first. ManagedMethods, they're back with us. They give K-12 cybersecurity and safety for your students. Go to ManagedMethods.com, click on use cases to understand how they can help your district. Mention us when you talk to them. Also, NTP, proud sponsor and studio sponsor, no less. I think I'll be seeing some of the guys from NTP tomorrow. So if you have a need for EDR or next-gen antivirus and maybe a SOC, 24/7 SOC service, reach out to David Wren, DWREN, at ntp-inc.com. And I love it. Actually, I had a reference call on NTP last week or earlier this week from a person that was checking up on David to make sure that what we say is really true. And It is. I actually use NTP. So all that fun stuff. Let's jump into the news. Mark, what do you got? We got a couple news stories tonight, right?
We got some good news. It's business news. So we're doing all business with Chris out of here. So the first one, this was actually a report from a capital investment firm called Reach Capital. And they do quite a lot of investing in EdTech companies. And while this kind of stuff may not be our forte and it's really not our interest, it's interesting to think about where the money is flowing in EdTech, because this is going to hit us. And I do think we need to think about these kinds of things because it's going to change our world. So Reach Capital released a report on EdTech capital investments. And what they're showing is that capital investments, not meaning like capital projects within districts and your capital improvement projects, but capital investments as in people spending or investing money in EdTech products, has slowed tremendously since the pandemic. As you can imagine, there was quite a lot of capital investments in 2020, 2021. Pre-pandemic, the expenditures was around 2.2 billion. 2021, that went from 2.2 to 8.2 billion dollars.
Crap.
So you can see just how much money was spent on these EdTech companies. That has slowed down, though.
Oh my god, who didn't mute their phone?
I'm sorry. That has slowed down, and we're now back at the pre-pandemic value or pre-pandemic amount. So 2023 was down to 2.8. So just about, as you can imagine, it's going to be dropping a little bit more. That the investments, this is where I'm super interested, though. The investments here that you're seeing in the private sector with people investing in EdTech products matches the ESSER funding, not just pandemic, but the ESSER funding. The amount of money that the federal government is spending on education, we see the same amount of money or that same investment in the private sector. So ESSER is drying up.
Yep.
Capital is drying up. We need to start to think about how this is going to impact some of the companies that we work with. One of the things that they start to highlight are purchases, companies buying other companies. And one of them that they highlight is something we've talked about, is PowerSchool buying School Messenger. I didn't realize it was $300 million acquisition. So we're seeing companies starting to buy things up. We're starting to see the AI bump. That means that these companies that we work with, both small and large, we're going to see changes. So we're going to start to see acquisitions. We're going to start to see some mergers. We are going to start to see some companies dropping off. There's this massive amount of money that was put into the EdTech market, and it's going away. It's drying up. It's changing. So, and even Reach Capital in this article talked about the end of ESSER as being a significant event for us to think about. So something for us, while this is very foreign to us in this industry, and we don't necessarily think about, capital investments and large amounts of money flowing around in the private sector. What it does mean, though, is that some of the products and companies that we do work with are going to change in the near future. They're going to get bought. They're going to dry up. They're going to go away. So I think this is a very significant article, but we're not really going to see the impacts of this for 6 to 12 months.
It's interesting you mentioned mergers, and I know that's your next talking point is one of them. But Remind was acquired by Parent Square, and I think that's going to play interesting. We had just signed with Remind for parent communication, or that kind of unified communication, so that everybody's on the same thing, and we have control over those messages. And then Parent Square went and bought them. So that was the other big competitor. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out too. It's interesting, Mark. I'm going through my budget cycle planning for next year. I had my budget meeting this week. And I had to go through and get renewal costs for filter and, all the stuff. And it's interesting. Most everything stayed relatively flat, I should say, except for my student web filter. It went up like 13%.
Wow.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked. And the frustrating thing, I'm like, okay, well, I'll go look at a competitor like Bloxy, because a number of districts around me use Bloxy, and they were within like $1,000. I'm like, well, $1,000 is not worth the headache of jumping ship and changing platforms and retraining everybody. So yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see how renewal timeframe, what those prices look like. And I think you're getting ready to talk about a very expensive renewal change coming up this year.
Yeah. So while this is not exclusively in the education market, it definitely impacts a lot of us in EdTech. VMware. So we all heard the news last year that VMware was being purchased by Broadcom, and those of us who have experience with Broadcom know that an acquisition by Broadcom is not something to be taken lightly.
What else have they killed off?
Symantec.
Yes.
Yep. And so when that happened, I looked back into last year's news, and there were some articles estimating that approximately 20% of customers would actually stay with VMware, and that's panning out. And I've seen some recent surveys where 18 to 20% of customers are actually saying that they're going to stay with VMware now that people are starting to see their renewal costs.
Yep.
And this is hitting people very hard. I've heard colleagues saying 4 to 6 times
Ours is
the
4
cost.
times.
4 times.
Yep.
Some people saying 6 times. I've seen in other industries 7 or 8 times the cost. What Broadcom is doing is they're shrinking the VMware kind of catalog down.
Yeah.
So they're going from many products down to a very, very small number. And that means that people are now being swept into pricing that they weren't used to, and those prices are skyrocketing.
Well, and they're going from the model of really all you paid for year over year was support, and now it's SaaS. So that's software as a service. You're renewing that purchase more or less every year. We're going from spending just over $1,000 a year in support for Essentials Plus to over $4,000 for whatever they call it now.
Yeah.
I think, that's one thing, and that's a cost that is pretty easily absorbed, because it's, in the grand scheme of things, okay, that's not a huge dollar amount. But the optics of killing off your free product line is just horrible. Like, come on. They killed off the free ESXi version. Why? Like, what was it was really no cost, because you've already got the product developed, because you're selling it. You weren't offering support for it. That's
and they're not the first company that's done this. I mean, I remember when Smartboard went from being a one-time purchase to suddenly the software was an annual subscription, and people just flipped out over it. But that has become the norm, and it's really, really hard to find products where it is a one-time purchase. Some people are taking full advantage of the Broadcom VMware purchase, and the article that I had shared with you earlier is Nutanix. Nutanix is one of the competitors.
Yeah.
Mid 2022, their shares were $14 a share. They just closed at $64 a share.
Wow.
And a lot of that growth has been ongoing, but a lot of the growth has occurred since November, when the deal, when Broadcom finally finalized that deal.
Wow, I didn't realize Nutanix was public. I'm gonna have to look them up.
You can see this, just it's a steady climb of Nutanix, and they are doing very, very well in the wake of the Broadcom purchase. So fascinating business news with both acquisitions and mergers, and where that impacts other people. It started to make me think, when you were talking about your filter costs rising, how we do need to keep an eye on other sector products within the same area. So as other filters start to rise their costs, you should anticipate yours is going to start to rise as well. So
absolutely.
And that's something that, we got to keep an eye on. Someone like Nutanix, where they're seeing that, they're going to acquire a ton of customers, and then why not just start to raise the prices there too. So
it looks like they've doubled as of late August. They've doubled since late August. Nutanix.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Interesting.
Well, speaking of money, the last article is not really an article, but more of a reminder. You got 20 days, or probably by the time you're listening, this a little bit less. Form 471 applications close on March 27th.
Yeah. And Mark, have you talked to anybody that's filed 471s besides me?
I don't know. I don't talk to anybody.
I'm just curious if other people are seeing the same thing that I saw. Very, very quick turnaround to wave ready status for the 471s. Like, literally same within 24 hours. I was wave ready on every one of the 471s that I submitted. Yeah, thanks, Milo. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, within 24 hours on it was 4 or 5 471. So I'm curious if anybody else is seeing that. Because normally, you can wait up until like April, May, June before you get wave ready status. Let's see. Let's go ahead and close up the newsroom. Mark, why don't you come up on out of the basement and rejoin me in the studio? Oh, wow, man, you took those stairs. You've been training? You've been training, haven't you?
A little out of breath.
All right, let me pull up Absolute real quick. Absolute, they can help. How can they help schools save time and money? You're asking yourself. Their software helps you locate and recover lost and stolen devices and assets, even when they're off your school network. Additionally, their dashboard streamlines inventory collection and control of devices so that you can achieve more with your limited financial and headcount resources. Staffing. Give Absolute. Chris didn't leave me. Oh, yeah, he did right there. K12Tech at absolute.com. If you've got any questions or you want to schedule a demo, again, tell them you heard about them here. We have several listener emails this week. So what we get, if you want to be a listener email, if you have content for us, a question for us, what hair gel Mark uses, k12techtalk@gmail.com.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but if you watch the podcast, then you'll on YouTube, then you'll see that I probably don't use hair gel.
And that's a good plug for our YouTube channel. Search for it, K12 Tech Talk on YouTube, and subscribe. So, listener email 1 had to do with if you're a small school or a small district or even a private parochial school, individual school, is the trouble of ERate worth it? Is it worth your time? Mark, what do you think? I can understand where this person's coming from.
Yeah, no, totally. This is somebody from a private individual school, and they're asking the question of, should I even bother with this? I think the answer is yes, if you, in the money that you save, that you're able to recoup that cost and use that towards your work, right? And you can move it towards other things.
Oh,
absolutely.
You're saying reallocate those funds.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. If your CFO is saying, hey, this is great, we just saved a ton of money on this, or some money on this, and you're able to use that, here's the money back, then absolutely. And I think that's up to you to determine. If your school district or your school just sweeps the cost savings and you don't see any of it,
I'll go one further. If you're a private school and you haven't done this, do you have a method to collect free and reduced lunch information? Because if you don't, that could be a gigantic headache and absolutely not worth the time and trouble.
If you never thought about that.
If your school is collecting that information, or you have a large percentage of your population that is direct cert with Medicaid, state assistance, that job's done for you. Then yes, absolutely. But if they're not collecting that information, no, that's a lot to survey every family and get that information back, and then put that information in the admin center. That can be a lot of work, and then that's on top of releasing 470s and going through the bid process and then filing a 471.
Yeah, I thought of this as just kind of a done deal, but you're right. There are districts and schools out there that do not do the freely reduced lunch forms. And so if you're not already doing that, that's a massive, massive part of work.
Yeah. A lot of private schools around us don't do them because, just to be honest, a lot of families that go to private school don't need free and reduced lunch assistance.
Right. And if you aren't collecting lunch forms and you know that you're from a more kind of higher wealth community, and you do the work of collecting all these free reduced lunch forms and realize there is just no money coming back from it, well, you've just created a huge amount of work for absolutely nothing. So interesting one.
I would say the bigger question or discussion that's been among the people that I work with has been, do you hire a consultant for ERate work, or do you do it yourself? And I'll say the first couple of years that I was at my district, we did do a consultant just because I had not done ERate before. And then they screwed up pretty royally and nearly cost us going into red light status. And since then, I've done it myself. And it really, once you get the hang of it and understand the terms and the deadlines, it's not a super heavy lift. Like it's pretty manageable. Mark, do you guys do it internally, or do you have a consultant?
We have done it internally. We do use a consultant right now. That onboarding lift is hard. We went through a staff transition, and I just remember it was like, a couple of folks going to training sessions in PD to learn the terms, to learn the deadlines, and that onboarding lift is heavy.
Yeah,
it's heavy.
we have a good consortium in Missouri, and we have our state ERate coordinator does webinars every fall about this is a 470, this is a 471, this is Bear, SPI, the whole thing. He does a super good job at it and is willing to answer questions. So super thankful for him and what he does. Without him, I probably would still be with a consultant, quite frankly. Let's see the next one. What are your thoughts on swapping out vendors regularly? CFO thinks vendors should be swapped out every 2 to 4 years to continue with fresh technologies and a way to keep vendors honest with pricing and scope of work to be competitive with others. I'm going to flat out say I disagree with this 90% of the time. I think establishing long-term relationships with vendors is a good thing because they know your environment, they know your network. I can call up Derek from PDS, who is a sponsor tonight, HPE. Actually, they just helped me install a point-to-point access point at our baseball field, and he's helping me work through some Aruba Central stuff with AOS 10. And I know Derek knows my network. He knows my VLANs. He knows my setup. I can call Derek and we can have a very quick conversation and get to the meat of the problem. If I was switching vendors every 2 years, it would be having the base conversation every 2 years. That's not a fun thing to do. Now, I am completely on board with keeping them honest by getting competitive bids when you go out for major projects. And we do that. And I think you have to do that to keep everybody honest. And I flat out tell them that. But yeah, that's just part of due diligence and being a good steward of tax dollars. Mark?
Yeah, I think you raised a lot of really good points around institutional knowledge. It's helpful when your vendors begin to have institutional knowledge, and some of the projects that you're doing are just kind of second nature to folks. It's hard. I do agree. I don't think it's a yes or a no or one or the other. I think that there are times where it's very helpful to swap out vendors and try something new. It keeps them honest with pricing. It keeps them competitive. It helps you look at other sides of things. Sometimes you get used to vendors, you get used to doing things the same way over and over again, and suddenly another vendor comes in and open your eyes to something different. It's hard though. I can definitely think of vendors that we worked with for a long time, and I've thought of can think of times where we've swapped over a vendor and it's been amazing, right? That suddenly wow, this whole thing that we used to use and we just thought we could never do without, this new vendor has a whole different way, and folks love it. I think your final point around the competitive bidding process is first and foremost the most important thing. You have to abide by competitive bidding, and whatever you do not do anything to stick with vendors outside of that. But I think when you have a good relationship around some of your more complicated parts of the job, that's where sticking with a vendor for a long period of time is worth its weight in gold. When they know your network, or they know how your teachers use this particular product. I think that's very helpful.
And yeah, to your point about due diligence and competitive bid process, we had to leave HP or PDS for a period of time for switching because they weren't low bid. It's a difficult conversation to have. It's not fun. But I still have a relationship with PDS on other product lines. So I mean, it happened, and it can happen. But that's part of doing business and keeping people honest.
Well, that's an interesting one though, around resellers, right? So you're not necessarily changing the technology, but you're changing the vendor who's actually supplying it. 100%. That's a no-brainer that your competitive bidding process should keep people low on pricing and honest. The other one I thought about was if the CFO wants to swap out vendors every 2 to 4 years, does that mean you're swapping from Google to Office 365 every couple of years, and then you're going to go back? The last episode, we all talked about SIS transitions. Are you going to change your SIS every 2 to 4 years?
I will never, I'm putting it on the record now, I will never switch student information systems again. Never.
Do you want to trade?
No, I know you're not liking yours right now, but I am never going through another conversion. To that point, Mark, switching from Aruba to Extreme, both of them have been sponsors on here. I actually had to do that. We switched from HP Aruba, or not Aruba at the time, but I guess HP stuff at the time, to Extreme due to low bidding stuff.
Yeah,
it's not fun, but
yeah,
it happens sometimes, and when you open up bidding, that can happen. But if you want to hear about more from HP, email jeff.cobb, C-O-B-B, at hpe.com, and mention you heard about him from here. Let's see. We are moving right along when Chris isn't here. Let's see. How do you make your argument when you think your team needs to grow? You want to take this one, Mark?
Yeah.
I guess Milo does.
He's very vocal. Wow. My wife's out of the house tonight, so she's so he's going a little bit crazy right now.
And that's not Mark's kid. Milo is not Mark's kid. It's a dog.
It's my dog.
Ignoring a child.
Can you hear him? He's moaning back there.
No, I can't hear him moaning. I only heard him barking earlier.
All right. So the main topic is around the size of your team and how do you grow? How do you talk to your leadership, your superintendent or your COO, whoever you report to? And shut up.
Can the producer please go give the doggy a biscuit? I mean,
okay. See, there's nobody else in the house to shut him up right now.
You bring him on. He just wants to get on camera, Mark.
Okay, give me a second.
All right. So Mark's going to talk about when he gets Milo over here. Mark is expanding his team. He's bringing Milo into the podcast team. How do you advocate for expanding your team and bringing more people on while we wait for our newest podcast member, Milo, to show up?
Back.
There you are.
All right, I'm a terrible parent. He just needed to go outside and go to the bathroom.
Oh, don't let your wife listen to this episode.
All right.
All right.
Where we leave off?
Where were we? How do you advocate for expanding your team?
Yes. So I've had a number of internal conversations with folks on my team. We've had some staff transitions over the last few months. Meaning that I've had some folks, very long-standing members of the team, who have taken kind of an extended medical leave, and it's been a time for us to advocate for the growth of our team, and that's really, really hard to do, especially stuff that we just talked about with ESSER funding going away and prices going up. It's really, really hard. How do you get your team to grow? How do you advocate for your team to grow? Especially when most of us are in small districts with teams of 1 to 3 people. That's the average size of a tech team in the United States.
Holy cow, really?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Wow.
I think actually, if you actually look at by student count, and it's usually about 1 person per 1,000 students. So depending on the size of your district, that's where it's going to be. But it's about one person or 1 tech person per 1,000 students. How do you get that number down? How do you grow? Got a couple of tips to share today, but I will say it is very, very hard to advocate for the growth of your team right now when superintendents are being forced to make a lot of cuts due to either student enrollments being decreasing or ESSER funding going away. So I think part of this is understanding that there may be a time where your team might be able to grow in the future, but there also may be some things that you need to do internally to plan for the fact that your team will not grow.
Yeah.
But anyways, going more towards a positive outlook here. The first argument that I make with my leadership is around knowledge sharing. And one of the reasons I've been able to make that argument is because we've had a couple of people who have left on medical leave and taken a lot of knowledge with them. And the ability to grow your team means that there are more people that you can share knowledge, you can create institutional knowledge with, and reduce the liability or reduce the impact on your district should another person leave or should somebody transition or go to another job. And Josh, we've talked a lot about that too, of, a school district where one person leaves and this person takes all of the knowledge with them.
I just had a conversation with my assistant soup over finance today, and he was telling me about a district a couple of years ago that he knew about, that their IT, it was small district. Their IT guy was leaving, and the district was asking for, brain dump password switch passwords, stuff like that. And the person would not hand them over and wanted a payout to hand over switch CLI passwords.
No.
Yeah.
So we have to prepare our districts for transitions, and a lot of us sometimes say, well, I'm never going to leave, I'll stay here forever, or they should pay me more. But we need to protect our industry, right? We want to be able to protect the reputation of the K-12 technology industry. And I think knowledge sharing is very, very important to make. And I would always make the argument that adding more staff and allowing knowledge to be shared across more people is best for the district and is best for the tech team as a whole.
Yeah, we had to do. Did you know I went to Alaska for 2 weeks?
Heard about it once on a podcast.
So we did, and I think we've talked about this a lot. We did that whenever I went to Alaska, and we called the document that all of that information is in the bus document.
Because if Josh gets hit by a bus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you go off walking in Alaska and like find a bus and eat some.
Well, have you read the book, White?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Into the
yeah.
Wild. What was that guy's name? Chris
Krasinski?
Was that his name?
Ted Kaczynski? That was him, right?
Mark. Quit. No, you're
Krakauer.
It looks like you're
John Krakauer.
You're having signal issues, maybe. Yeah. So definitely brain dump, knowledge sharing, that kind of thing. Absolutely important. What's your next tip, Mark?
Proactive versus reactive. We all feel the pain of being reactive when we're trying not to be. And there is what I like to be able to communicate to my leadership is there is always going to be in this industry a reactive mentality and a reactive kind of mode of operations. Teacher's going to pick up the phone that something is broken and you need to get to that classroom right away. When the main office printer goes down, everything has to stop until that printer can get back up.
You say you printed the copy machine, not the printer.
I'm sorry. But at the same time, we can all think of a dozen projects that, man, if I had time to get this project done, it would improve the district operations or the school, the classroom experience so much more. And being able to build your team allows you to shed some of that work off and say, okay, this person's responsibility is tickets and being able to respond to issues from teachers. This person's responsibility is, building out the network or carrying out this project. And so if you could think of different projects that you could bring to your leadership and say, hey, here's a low cost project that I'd really like to be able to do. It would really benefit the teachers and the classrooms a whole lot more, but I'm spending 90% of my day fixing problems and fixing issues. That's something for you to be able to get out. But you have to really tie it down to tangible outcomes. Superintendents and CFOs want to see that the money being spent is leading to tangible outcomes. You can't be very wishy-washy when it comes to this. So being able to have a number of projects lined up and say, if I had additional help, or even if you could spare some money for contract dollars, here are the 5 or 6 things that I can do that are going to bring outcomes for our classrooms. They're going to benefit you. It's going to improve our district. Being able to almost, I don't want to say separate the reactive and proactive, but being honest with your leadership that adding more people to your team can allow you to move the district forward rather than constantly fixing the broken stuff.
Well, and that leads to political capital as well for you. Like if you're going to them and you're saying, hey, I need an extra body to do X, Y, Z. And if those projects come to completion and it's a positive improvement, they know you're not the little boy who cries wolf. Like you actually needed that body to get these projects done. So that can be huge when it comes to political capital with your district.
Yeah. I always say if your leadership or somebody comes to you with 3 things that they really want you to do, try to find one to do it as quick and as fast as possible. Hit the other one and say, I think I can do that project. That sounds like a really good one to do. And then take the heat off of that third one and push it aside. But you've got to give your leadership, you've got to give people something that they want.
Yeah.
And they will in return, hopefully, understand that you have capital that you can bring.
Like letting teachers wear jeans, because that solved all of the world's problems, right?
Is that a thing?
Are you kidding me?
Okay. I've worked in multiple districts, so I know the jeans versus no jeans argument.
Yeah.
Where's your community?
We were hardcore no jeans until, and I mean hardcore no jeans, until the year everybody came back from COVID, and they went as loose as saying you could wear scrubs if you wanted to. And now we're back to you can wear jeans. It's fine. So
Wow.
yeah, been a pretty big paradigm shift.
My first district, the first job I got out of college, I go to the interview and I got a suit, because you don't have a suit in college. And I got a suit and I wore it. And in the interview, at the end of the interview, I was told, and the way you're dressed is great. We expect you to dress that way every day.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, okay, it's going to be this suit 180 days in a row. And then I got to my current district, where I've been since then, and I will never forget a very good friend. He ended up being a very good friend of mine, but I wore a tie every day, and this is, I'm in a little more casual district. And he looks at me after like a week of me wearing a tie. He goes, "How long are you gonna keep this up?"
Can I guess who that was?
I mean, you don't know him, but
I
go
don't
ahead.
know him. That sounds like something Joe would have said.
Oh, yeah, Joe.
Well, there might have been an expletive in there.
Yeah, but no, I'm now in a much more casual environment.
So that was going to be my next question to you. Chris and I have been to your office, and we saw the dress code. You dress up. It appeared like you're wearing a button down shirt, or at least polo shirt most days. Do you ever wear jeans to the office?
Friday's my jean day.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Same.
Yep. Yeah, well, I also, I'm not gonna lie, I have a hybrid team, and Friday is the most popular day for people to work from home. So I could not wear pants and people wouldn't even notice.
I don't know if you can say that, Mark.
Oh, we should.
Oh, Purdue, we can't say. Oh, okay, yeah, Mark, you can't say that.
Did I mention AIPA is a double IPA? I think.
DEPA. No, I'll wear polo shirt and khakis pretty much every day, and then on Fridays I'll wear jeans and a polo shirt. Let's see. Did we talk shared responsibilities? Did we talk about that?
Yeah. So this is another opportunity that I've found has also helped. So, and one of the questions we get a lot, and I've seen this in the K-12 industry, is like, who's managing security cameras and who's managing building access camera systems or building access systems? And I've found that there are opportunities to collaborate on projects or to actually bring on more work onto your team if that leads to more people. And I've volunteered. I will take on this terrible thing that nobody wants to do in the district if you also bring on the staff with me. And so if there's a way that you can bring on more responsibilities with a caveat that it brings on the staff that are responsible for that, then that might be an opportunity for you to grow your department. And then obviously, you've taken on more work, but hopefully it's done in a way that builds more capacity on your team, and you can share more knowledge. So can you make a pitch to bring more work onto your team with the caveat that you bring on more resources or bringing on more personnel? That might be an opportunity for you to grow your team.
It's funny how ubiquitous the disdain for door access control, security camera systems.
Yeah.
What am I missing? HVAC.
Yep.
What am I missing? What other pain system is kind of like everybody complains about it?
ID cards.
Yeah, it used door
and building
access
access. Yeah. Cameras are the big one that it seems universal across K-12 right now, is everybody's asking, are you doing cameras or is somebody else?
We spent 3 hours on a baseball field, pointing cameras in the concession stand and on the exterior of the bathrooms this week.
That's a long time.
Yeah, but it was nice outside. So I'm kind of a little bit tan from it. It was beautiful earlier in the week. Yeah.
I've also seen conversations like printers.
Oh,
I know. Nobody
Yeah.
likes it.
nobody.
That I
I
think
will go to the mat over printers. Like I probably have a really bad reputation in my district about printers.
I think that the two things when people leave their district or they leave K-12, the two things that they want to leave behind them forever are printers
Yeah.
and SIS transitions.
Oh, God. You know, who was I talking to? Somebody going through the. I know Chris crabs about it every week now, and he thought I was whining like a baby last year. I was talking to somebody else though. I'm like, the amount of alcohol that I drank during that CIS transition was so much. Like the amount of bourbon, my bourbon consumption has dropped dramatically since then. It's really, I don't know how Chris is doing it because he's clean, and I I don't know how he's doing it. I don't know. Lots of nerds, I guess.
The only thing worse than an SIS transition, though.
Colonoscopy. Well, that you're knocked out for that.
Sorry. Two of the things that are worse than an SIS transition: colonoscopy and ERP transitions. Your finance and HR system.
Yeah, I think my second or third year we did a finance transition. It wasn't horrible. The system we have now looks like it was written in 1986 with VB4, but whatever.
Well, that might be more of a large district problem because
sure. I could absolutely see that. Yeah. And Mark, I need to correct myself about the colonoscopy. It's not the colonoscopy that people dread. It's the prep for the colonoscopy that people dread.
The chalky thing.
Yeah, well, sitting on the toilet for 6 hours. So speaking of
Chris,
that,
this is what happens when you leave us.
Yeah, bathroom talk. You're not of that. You're not of the golden age of needing a colonoscopy. I'm almost there.
What else is on the agenda?
I think that's it. We have colonoscopy talk penciled in.
True.
What's your favorite colonoscopy prep medicine? Let's see. Let's finish out our two final sponsors, if they're still sponsors after the colonoscopy talk. Extreme Networks. Not that he's an expert in colonoscopy prep, but he is an expert in extreme networking gear. Email Dominic Mayer, Dom, as I like to call him, dmayer, Mayer, at extremenetworks.com. And then Fortinet, of course, Mr. Chris Illingworth, who is the sled guy for Fortinet. Fortinet podcast at Fortinet.com. Chris, your notes are horrible on this. Chris wrote FortinetPodcast.com at Fortinet.com. That is not a valid email address, Chris. It's FortinetPodcast at Fortinet.com. Let's see. Any closing thoughts for the week, Mark? We kind of, we save a bunch of time when Chris isn't here.
Yeah, because
he derails us that much.
Yeah, he does.
Maybe we need to have the producers have a talk with him.
Send him to HR.
Yeah. Well, he was suspended for those couple weeks that time.
Yeah.
Your mom was worried about him. I forgot about that.
Your mom was worried about him.
No, my mom wasn't. She didn't know Chris. Your mom.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were just using it.
No, it wasn't a your mama joke. It was your mom was really worried about Chris.
I don't know if my mom still listens. But there have been times where, like that time when you guys joked that I was suspended.
Yeah.
She was like, do you guys really have an HR department with somebody named Sue? And I was like, Mom, what? She goes, I don't know. I listened. I'm just worried about you. My mom takes this stuff very seriously. She doesn't understand our humor.
Well, Mark, you never reply to text, so how is she supposed to know?
Sorry.
All right. Episode 157. So next week, I assume Chris will have a very big debrief from the Midwest Tech Talk Security Symposium. He's actually been texting me during this episode tonight. And we will see where that leads us, how his sys transit. Yeah, he hasn't sent you any text, did he? I was texting him about a job opening I found out about
nothing.
today. Let's see. His sys transition is still going on. It's getting to be graduation time. I'm going to be a mess for the next 3 months. My son's graduating, and it's going to be wonderful.
You say it's graduation time?
Well, I mean, it's March. We start planning. Like, we start doing stuff with our scoreboard for graduation soon. They start working on the program soon. We just had my son's senior pictures done. Cap and gowns are going to be showing up soon. We ordered cap and gown back. And I'm telling you, cap and gown people, that's the racket to be in. I spent like $700 and I don't know what I bought.
What?
Yeah, I think I bought 50 graduation announcements and envelopes and a cap and gown, and it was like $700. That's the business to be in. Yeah, Milo, I know.
Yeah, my dog doesn't graduate.
Yeah, you don't even take him outside. All right, so episode 157, 158 will be next week. Chris will be back next week. Maybe one of us will be gone. You never know. Share us with your friends. Share us with your enemies. Patch your crap. MFA.
That's our new slogan. Patch your crap. The views and opinions expressed on the K-12 Tech Talk podcast are the personal opinions of Josh, Chris, and Mark, and do not represent the views or opinions of our sponsors or other organizations that we're affiliated with. The material and information presented here is for general information and entertainment purposes only. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.